Years ago, I bought this t-shirt with the hope that someday I'll wear it when I drive a Ferrari. But a lot of years have passed. This has become so shabby and tainted that if I were to wear it today, probably Ferrari will never allow me inside any of their showrooms, let alone letting me drive a Ferrari. However, finally that time has come. Believe it or not, after all these years of driving fast cars, this is going to be my first time driving a Ferrari. And believe it or not, it's first-timers like me that Ferrari is targeting with this car. The new, or not, it's first-timers like me that Ferrari is targeting with this car. The new Roma. This then is the most accessible Ferrari at the moment. And while that statement might make you put the Roma in the same boat as the yesteryear California or the more recent Portofino, which it shares its platform with, the Roma is in a league of its own. Don't let that entry-level tag fool you. The Roma sprints quicker than a Portofino, has more horsepower than a 458 Italia, and does better speeds than the F430, the last of the elegant Ferraris before science took over the design. The Roma, being a Grand Tourer, has the classic Italian elegance too. The kind of lines that I loved on Ferraris like the 550 and the 599 are back in 2021. It even makes similar wheel choices. Where it differs though is at the rear. The signature round tail lights are gone, and while the rear end does look very refined, it may polarize purists and maybe even Ferrari fanboys like me. But then you can't really fault Italian design, can you? Especially if it packs in beautiful function as well. Like for example, this panel may look like it's a part of the windshield, but at speed, it rises up as a spoiler to give the car more downforce. If you like minimalism, the Roma ships without the iconic shields on the sides, and choosing to have them instead costs upward of 3 lakh rupees. Because these aren't just any decals, they come with their own bespoke recesses so that the aerodynamics are not disturbed. And therefore, they aren't just decals or shields, they come with their entire apron and entire panel. But don't you think they are sitting on a wrong color choice? British racing green? Who chooses that on a Ferrari? In fact, who chooses a Ferrari in any color other than red? Certainly not first-timers. But truth be told, most Romas are being spec'd in other colors than red. Maybe these are being spec'd by people who already have Ferraris in their garage, because apart from first-timers, even these returning customers are bound to be enticed by the Roma, because as it stands, it is right now the techiest car that rolls out of Maranello. There are switches to unlock the door from the outside or the inside, and the doors have a rather unique thud to them that I haven't heard on any other car. This Ferrari comes to life with this little feather touch panel on the steering wheel. How cool is that? And there's a sense of occasion to the way it comes to life. You have that beautiful soundtrack, everything else slowly starts lighting up. You have this big digital instrumentation. It just looks beautiful. It's even got that yellow tachometer in there. I so wanted my first Ferrari to have that yellow tachometer in, a mechanical format, but this one also looks quite good. In fact, this display looks so beautiful. Everywhere where they have to use the model of the car, they've used a wire mesh model. They've not used a colored model of the car because, of course, you're going to personalize. They're going to be different colors. Someone's going to choose a British racing green. So they've just gone about with a nice wire mesh design, and that model really looks good. It looks very techno in here. I really like it. Also, look at the paddle shifters. These are the largest ones that I've ever touched. Also, talking of first, you have this F1 style Manettino for the first time on a Ferrari Grand Tourer. I've only used this on a video game steering wheel on my Xbox, and I'm so glad they haven't gone digital with it. It's still mechanical, and there is such a childish joy to selecting different driving modes. All the controls are right here on the steering wheel. You also have these LEDs on the steering wheel. This is the first time I'm actually seeing it in a car, and it looks so beautiful. Oh my god, I'm just going to go crazy sitting inside this cabin. Just beautiful. Just how I just love it. There is a reason why Ferrari calls it a human-machine interface. Being a Ferrari, there is an endless options list. and you can find a list of everything that's installed on the car that you're looking at with a plug inside the boot. The boot may be a bit tiny for a Grand Tourer, but inside the boot. The boot may be a bit tiny for a Grand Tourer, but for a 2+ car, there is enough space for the occupant's weekend luggage. The cabin is divided into 2 chambers for the driver and the passenger. The latter gets the feeling of being a co-pilot with their own little screen that displays a wealth of information including some telematics. The yellow pinstriping around the cabin looks great, and a matching pattern at the rear tells you that those are seats too. Maybe for toddlers there are child seat mounts. For kids, no, because there is no foot space. For your pets, maybe yes, unless your pets are lions and tigers, or maybe to just throw in some precious items. Like for example, I'm going to keep my precious Ferrari t-shirt back here. If I was buying, I would certainly have this red somewhere inside the car. Because in a Ferrari, you can choose and customize colors and materials to match your taste and persona. I also simply love the design of the gear selector, which is an ode to the gated manual transmissions of old-school Ferraris. While the V8 engine under the hood is sort of familiar, this module controls a new 8-speed dual-clutch transmission. Let's do some nerdy talk. Now, the 8-speed in this car is derived from the 8-speed from the SF90, but unlike that car which uses an electric motor, this one has a proper reverse gear. Shouldn't matter to us because it still does the same thing, but there's a really cool animation when you select the reverse gear. Besides that is the automatic and the manual mode, and besides that is the launch control which can be used on the racetrack. And to that effect, you also have different drive modes. You have wet, you have comfort, you have sport, and you have race. You can actually take this car to the racetrack. And of course, these modes are going to make changes to the suspension behavior, to the behavior of the steering, and to the behavior of the powertrain. I'm guessing it's just going to make it a lot more violent, and I'm eager to find out. The Roma's gearbox is 6 kilos lighter and boasts of quicker shift compared to the 7-speed transmission in Ferrari's previous applications. Honestly, I would have to sample both the gearboxes back to back, take it to a track test maybe to really know the difference. But if Ferrari says that it is quicker than the outgoing gearbox, well, let's just agree with that and brag about it. Because at the end of the day, Ferrari simply makes the best dual-clutch transmissions in the world. The gearbox software is programmed to give you different levels of torque, different amounts of torque in every gear. And in 7th and 8th gears, it can give you all of that 700 plus Newton meters of torque. And honestly, I don't know if even on a racetrack, you will be able to exploit that level of torque. The amount of torque that this engine offers is just phenomenal. At no point does it feel that you're waiting for that torque to come. Not at all. It almost feels like, there is some kind of a hybrid assistance, there is some kind of a torque fill, because even at lower revs, no matter what speeds you're pulling from, or even at higher revs, like I said, no matter what speeds you're pulling from, there is just that endless supply of power and torque all the time. And that's a beautiful feeling. Roma features the extreme trickery and the finesse of the Ferrari Slide Slip Control, or SSC. Dubbed version 6.0, it puts to task systems like the electronic differential, the F1 traction control, and the Ferrari dynamic enhancer to ensure that the car can slip and slide to make you happy or stay focused and earn perfect lap times if you need it to. Once I drove a 600 plus horsepower race car, and I was honestly expecting it to make me soil my pants because the conditions were similar, slippery, rainy, and it was on the Silverstone track. But it didn't do any of that because it just felt very easy to drive. It just felt that there was all that power and torque that was usable. And somewhere, this Roma is bringing back those kind of feelings. It is making me feel like it's just an easy car to drive, and that's actually a good thing because it never feels, even when you're going fast around twisties on conditions like these, it never feels like it wants to bite your head off. It just wants to spin around, throw you out. Nothing. It just feels so manageable, so easy to drive, and that's actually a very good feeling. The steering is direct yet light. The suspension is unbelievably supple for a car of this order. The visibility isn't compromised, and the grip from the rear axle is such a tease. You can maintain a tidy line if you want to, or make it step out of line if that is what makes you happy. I so badly want to be on a racetrack right now. I know this is a Grand Tourer and it's made for open roads like these, but I'm sure it will just prance its way happily to a racetrack if it gets the opportunity. To that effect, it even has that race mode, and it does make all the difference. Oh my god, this is just too much fun. It's twitching out of corners, it's sliding a little bit out of corners, and you know there are electric assists, but this is not, you know, the traditional stability control which is going to try and keep things too tidy. It's about making sure that you have that driving fun. If the Roma is designed to handle the roads in Naples, I'm sure it'll do just fine in Mumbai, Bengaluru. If it can fit in the narrow winding roads of Amalfi, I'm sure it'll do just fine in the lanes of Chennai and the scenic routes of Kerala. And that exhaust note, it's just perfect for the streets of Delhi, right? So this Italian steed, it's got India covered pretty well. The first time I ever saw the Roma was actually in a camouflage, and this was around the mountains near Maranello, and that time I was driving the Levante Trofeo. That has the same family of the V8 engine, but that runs a cross-plane crank for a different sound, of course, and this one has that flat plane crank, and that, compared to the growling note that we've seen in Maseratis, this one has that high-pitched, typical Ferrari soundtrack. I remember there used to be this game where you could identify different Ferraris with the soundtracks that they played. I don't know if car nerds these days play anything like that. I don't know if the generation tomorrow will even know a game like this existed. But I'm glad that I belong to that generation, a generation that has grown up listening to these beautiful engines, and I'm glad I have been able to drive one before it all runs out. Either way, I trust Ferrari to safeguard the quintessence of driving pleasure for generations to come. I don't need a V-Box to tell me that this car sprints from 0 to 100 in 3.4 seconds. It certainly is very quick. And it's not just that acceleration, it's also the acceleration out of corners. It's simply aesthetic, not brutal at all. It doesn't feel like an animal. And that's the beauty of it. Listen to that thing. Oh my god, just listen to that thing. And even when it's standing still, I can keep ogling at the Roma, even if it's not in red. And as they say, there's something about Italian design that mesmerizes you. Ferrari says that the face of the Roma is inspired by the nose of a shark, and this particular Roma is packed to the gills, costing almost 5 crore rupees with all the options thrown at it. At this point, I could also talk about the 7-year maintenance package that Ferrari offers for this car to make life with this car a little bit easier. I could also talk about the waiting period for the Roma to highlight the exclusivity that this car offers. But then again, that's not the point of a Ferrari. You see, a Ferrari is where cliches like poster car material, childhood dreams, they get realized, they get personified. For people like me, driving and testing Ferraris has been the career goal, especially for hacks like us. And my hair's gone grey waiting to drive that first Ferrari. So you see, owning and driving a Ferrari is a privilege in itself, and the Roma is going to enable that privilege for a lot of more people. And looking at how this particular car drives, how this Grand Tourer performs, I think the driver's seat of a Ferrari track car is my next dream destination to be added to the bucket list. My favorite Ferrari is the F40. Which one's yours? Do let me know in the comments below. Also let me know what do you think about the new Ferrari Roma. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. And if you've liked the video, hit that like button and also share it with your friends and family.